Imagine a game that combines the collectathon format of Super Mario 64 with the exploration and dungeon design of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Are you picturing it? Well, that's Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. It's 2012, I'm hooked on the family Nintendo 64, trying out games passed down from my dad and my uncles. Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Bomberman Hero, and the one and only Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon and Goemon's Adventure. My uncle introduced me to Goemon. We used to play Goemon Adventure multiplayer all the time. It's a side scroller that gets progressively harder as more enemies appear with timed attacks and dodging obstacles. We recently played it together and I still struggled a bit to this day. My discovery of Goemon's Adventure sparked my curiosity about its 3D predecessor, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. Developed by Konami, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon is a platform action adventure game released in Japan in 1997 and North America and Europe in 1998 for the Nintendo 64. This was the 12th mainline installment of the Goemon franchise and a sequel to The Legend of Mystical Ninja, released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, also known as Goemon 5, was the first 3D game in the series. It's remembered for its Japanese humour, attractive graphics, outstanding anime-style soundtrack, and fun gameplay. The game stayed true to its Japanese roots while introducing Western audiences to a different world, and it's one of my favourite third-party Nintendo 64 titles. Directly inspired by Ganbei Goemon 3, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon recreates that world in 3D with a versatile experience that combines top-down town exploration with side-scrolling gameplay. The world map strikes a perfect balance with the environment. The game's collectathon system rewards you with upgraded weapons and extended health. Silver fortune dolls are key collectibles. You gather 4 of them to expand your maximum health bar by 1 heart. You also collect Yo, which is money by defeating enemies and destroying vases. This currency lets you purchase armor, weapons, and items that unlock new abilities, allowing you to navigate different terrains and progress through the game in typical adventure RPG fashion. My favourite moments were the dungeon designs and their abstract puzzles. At one point you're on a giant pool table knocking balls into holes to reach the next room. Other engaging elements include moving platforms and Abetsumaru's camera, which reveals hidden puzzles. The abstract liminal designs echo a vivid style, and also not to forget the one and only when you need a clue in the game. Love that part, so funny. The game immerses you in a journey to save civilians and liberate them from a corrupt regime. The dungeon level design was exceptionally well done considering the technical limitations at the time with the N64. The 2D style pathways requires backtracking to discover new areas, creating satisfying exploration. There was plenty of Zelda-esque dungeon design specifically reminiscent of Ocarina of Time, which makes sense considering both games were developed around the same period. Each dungeon maintains its own identity, with difficulty fluctuating accordingly. Completing these dungeons was satisfying and delivered a feel-good experience that would reward players at the end of his journey. Ooh. Originally titled Ganbei Goemon 5, Konami's ambition for this installment was to break from its predecessors. Director Etsunobu Ebisu and producer Shigeharu Umeseki wanted to abandon the series' naming pattern, leading to the final title, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. The development cycle was challenging. Konami was figuring out how to transition Goemon into 3D for the first time, facing a short time frame and limited reference materials. The team aimed for a gameplay style that blended Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time before its 1998 release. In November 1996, Ebitsu told Family Manga 64, quote, "The game is basically set up like if Goemon 3 were made into 3D, but I think that the 3D element makes the ambience and vibe of the game that users will experience pretty different." In the interview, Ebitsu mentioned that the game shared fundamental elements with Mario 64 while giving Goemon more direct combat mechanics. That same month, speaking to Degenki 64, Ebitsu explained how the game's world design paid homage to historical Japanese locations, with the first dungeon based on Edo Castle. He wanted players to feel excitement while exploring the field and when playing the game. An almost finished build was showcased at E3 in summer 1997. Remember that? E3? This early demo became a disaster, plagued by graphic glitches, camera problems, and collision issues that made the game nearly unplayable. The game originally featured a 2-player mode where both players controlled their characters on a single screen, with the option to switch to split screen. However, this was scrapped months before the Japanese release due to technical limitations that pushed the Nintendo 64 beyond its capabilities. We've seen this before with Super Mario 64. Until late in development, the game featured Mario and Luigi controlled on screen simultaneously, as shown at the Shoshinkai event in November 1995, before being cut from mid-1996 retail release. Konami would later reuse the two-player on-screen concept in the side-scroller Goemon's Adventure. Later that summer, Konami presented a polished build at the Tokyo Game Show in September 1997. This was a success with colourful advertisements targeted at children, featuring a Goemon mascot at elementary schools and school gymnastic sessions. The developers aimed to make the game very visual with fresh content. The game sold 200,000 copies worldwide, with only a quarter of those sales coming from Western audiences. Overall, it received average reviews but earned praise for its unique graphics, simple controls, and story. The story of Mystical Ninja has loose connections to feudal Japan. Feudalism ties in with Goemon for several reasons. The first is the four-tier caste system. Derived from the Edo period hierarchy, samurai is the ruling class and the Peach Mountain shoguns portrayed as the corrupt. Goemon and the Bitsumaru are depicted as noble thieves fighting against the upper caste. Yae is a mysterious ninja opposing the forces destabilizing Japan. Suzuki is a mechanical ninja representing the game's sci-fi. During the Edo period, Japan was a hierarchical society where power shifted from the emperor to military rulers, who granted land to the feudal lords in exchange for loyalty and military service from samurai warriors. Peasants formed the base of the structure, creating a system centered on land, military might, and strict social rules, similar to but different from European feudalism. In Mystical Ninja, the Peach Mountain shoguns parody the military dictators of the feudal hierarchy. The story revolves around subverting corrupt authorities who enforce their will on the populace. The game features significant Japanese cultural elements such as daimyo, samurai, and the fear of westernization replacing traditional culture. Mystical Ninja's interpretation of feudal Japan blends comedic, fantastical, sci-fi, and anachronistic elements that rebel against the era's authority. The game presents these heavy themes in a way that doesn't demand deep engagement from the player. However, while researching this video, something struck me about the backstory and inspiration behind this series. Goemon was based on a revolution. Partially inspired by the legendary 16th century Japanese Robin Hood, Ishikawa Goemon lived near the end of the Sengoku era. He was known for stealing from wealthy feudal lords and merchants to distribute the oppressed peasants. Are you seeing the similarities now? He was an Iga ninja who attempted to assassinate the warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi, which led to his public execution, boiled alive in an iron cauldron. Ishikawa's legacy celebrates his theft from the rich and his band of thieves who defied the military rulers. Folklore credits Goemon as an expert ninja with superhuman strength and abilities. Back to Konami's Goemon, early titles in the Ganbei Goemon series portrayed the protagonist as a thief with parallels to the folklore's original bandit. Goemon's character design carries the traditional portrayal of a brave and noble thief. Bushy blue hair, a distinct pear-shaped head, a kabuki style makeup. His weapon choice is another interesting design element, a kisaru, often depicted in kabuki theatre as a tool used by outlaws. The soundtrack is another memorable aspect of this game. An anime style intro greets you to the moment you load it up, and I shamelessly sing along to the lyrics every time. A large group of composers worked in a part of the Goemon production committee. The team reused and remixed older themes of the 2D Goemon games, blending traditional Japanese music with anime-inspired electric sounds and a sprinkle of funk. Certain moments stand out whenever I think of this game. The Impact Battle, the intro theme with its vocal recording as mentioned, Festival Village with a slap bass and Zazen Town played on the shamisen and the shakuhachi. I sometimes caught shades of the iconic SNES sound in that funky slap bass, which was... it's satisfying to listen to, that's ear candy. Konami understood the assignment for Goemon's leap into 3D, from the soundtrack being adventurous, progressive, and occasionally putting you on edge while playing. It's incredibly impressive how the composers fit such a high quality audio into a 128 megabit cartridge, which at the time was massive considering the scale of the N64. Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon was a game that stood out when released in 1998. It introduces Western and European audiences to Japanese culture lightheartedly with a twist of fantasy and humour. It is one of my favourite games I played, and I feel it's a cosy title that's fun to play once in a while. The game doesn't demand a lot from the player, nor do you expect much from his storyline. Everyone's role is simple and categorised to easily identify the main character and the sidekick. I believe the franchise could have gone further beyond this release on the Nintendo 64, with Konami making it a staple alongside Metal Gear Solid. Perhaps we could have expanded adaptation of Goemon in space to prevent an astronaut destroying Japan, or Goemon being a fully fledged mechanical robot sampling the gameplay of Impact, or maybe Goemon is exploring other territories in Japan besides the countryside. It would have been interesting to see a GameCube version of Goemon, even though there was a spin-off released on the PlayStation 2, which many are unaware about, but it's aged terribly. I just feel this franchise was promising, albeit the gameplay has aged since the Nintendo 64, but the feel playing it was stimulating. Konami was stuck with dedicating Goemon to their core Japanese audience and catering to the Western and Europe. Albeit, I respect how they stuck to their guns and did not want the game to be changed or diluted for the mainstream market. A lot of Japanese developers would have compromised their titles to a specific audience back in the day, but Konami pursued the opposite. Which leads me to end this video on Goemon was based on a revolution. If we research on what the character was derived from and also the storyline and how heavily influential Japanese culture was in terms of designing that world, Konami were very focused with the assignment of what they wanted to create. You know, I'll never forget the first time I did discover Goemon by my uncle and just how unique and niche that world was in the game as well, from the soundtrack, the controls, the mechanics. You know, there was similarities to games that we were familiar with, such as your mainstream titles like Mario and Zelda, but this felt like its own identity, and I think that's what made the game so special. Even playing it now, I played it last year and I just had so much fun. You know, considering it's aged a bit, it's still a good game and it's worth playing. You know, we've seen Akaru on the Switch is inspired by Goemon, which feels like a 3D expansion of the game with the side scroll and some parts which I need to play as well, but I've seen some gameplay of it and I heard it got localized very recently, which I'm excited to get my hands on. Goemon is really a game I highly recommend people to play if they haven't tried it yet. And you know, despite its flaws, despite its shortcomings and how off beyond the Nintendo 64 we didn't see much of it, I still feel like it's worth playing and is something to be appreciated. And it'll be so cool to see Nintendo import it for NSO, but we can all dream and wish for that one day. I'm Solarcast. I hope you enjoyed this video of Goemon and I hope this inspired you to give it a try. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel and you like what you're seeing. I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.
Miete kuru 遥か空の彼方